Welcome back to Inside College Basketball Now with Jon Rothstein. Pleased to be joined by Michigan head coach Dusty May. And Dusty, welcome. As the weather turns in the Midwest and we get set for another Big Ten winter, how much do you miss those bike rides to work when you were living in Boca Raton at Florida Atlantic?
John, I try not to think about it, but when I do, I certainly miss it.
Now, you're in a different part of your career right now. You're in a power conference job in the Big Ten. As you reflect as a head coach, how do you look back on that run you had at FAU?
We have extremely fond memories of that entire experience, especially from the starting point to where we were to where we finished. And I think that it was just a natural progression as we continue to improve as coaches and learn the landscape of this new climate. And so everything has just kind of worked in a real natural order in our staff's opinion. So it's been fun.
You know, Dusty, you had a gradual build at Florida Atlantic, and then things exploded in 22-23 when you went to the Final Four. How did things amplify so much that season?
Well, the season before, we were really, really close. We had lost maybe 10 games by one possession, and we played without Nick Boyd, who missed the entire season with a foot injury. B.J. Greenlee missed several games early. So we were playing with a walk-on point guard, 20-plus minutes, several games. And so you had those two guys with Jalen Gaffney the following year, and you go from essentially having 0 point guards to having 3 borderline all-league guys if they didn't share minutes and share shots. So I think that's probably the biggest difference. And because the frontline guys, they were developing Rosado and Gold and all those guys. They were moving in that direction already. We just didn't have the guard play. And when you factor in how many games we went from losing by one possession to winning the next year, I think a testament is just a group getting older together. And also the guard play. But also, John, I think if we would have gotten over the hump the year before, we probably would have been pillaged our roster. But because we were still a little bit under the radar, no one really knew how good we were except us and the teams we played. It made it more likely that first year of no transfer portal sit out that we could retain those guys. And then after we started doing some special things together, it was difficult for those guys to leave each other.
But you did keep that group intact for 2 years. You went to the Final Four and you kept the nucleus intact to run it back the following year. How did you do that in this climate?
Great question. Those guys had such a unique bond with each other and also with our staff. So I think that and to be honest, John, we always had high major guys that had transferred down to us that didn't have great experiences, and they really valued the way we played and our locker room and things like that. So we had the propaganda machine in our locker room where guys, when they would start getting messages from the high majors, that their teammates would say, "Hey man, slow down, pump your brakes, be careful. It's not everything it seems to be." And we were open and honest. I remember the first year when we had a few grad transfers, I told them, "Hey, you're going to get a lot nicer gear. You're going to fly around in chartered planes and whatnot, but everything else is you have to decide what's important to you. If you want to leave your spot, your role, all those things to roll the dice for all that other stuff, we'll support you. But there is, you definitely need to look at it from all angles. And we lost a couple guys early, but I think that experience, those guys left, we followed their careers. And so I think all of those dudes just decided to run it back.
There's been so many coaches who have had great success in non-power conference jobs. Obviously, Mark Few at Gonzaga, so many coaches at VCU, Randy Bennett's done it at St. Mary's. But when was the moment for you when you said to yourself, you know what, if every year I want to have a chance to go deep in the NCAA tournament, I'm going to have to leave Florida Atlantic and go to a power conference job?
Well, we were hoping the Florida Atlantic thing would accelerate faster than it did. And our administration, they did a lot for us over that 6 years. But without a practice facility, without some of the things that we felt like we needed to sustain success and acquire really talented guys that wanted to get better, we just felt like the next step probably had to go to where we had all the resources necessary. And we were at a different phase of our lives as well. My wife and I became empty nesters, so the new challenge was Michigan, and the timing just fit across the board.
And obviously, your legacy at Florida Atlantic is going to be cemented forever because you took that program to the Final Four. I know you're a forward-thinking person, but I also know that you're a coach. How much does the San Diego State loss in the Final Four pop into your head?
Wow, every time I see Coach Dutcher and his team play on TV, I have a flashback. And
Yeah.
they made the play. They made the plays they needed to win, but we made several mistakes throughout that game that we didn't typically make, that were based on emotion and feelings as opposed to execution. So those are the plays that really stick in my head, that we didn't have our guys prepared for all that came with that. And once again, that's part of the growing process. So we definitely learn from that, and hopefully we can make some adjustments if we make it back.
You know, Dusty, it's interesting to me because 7 days prior, you're at Madison Square Garden and you win a regional final game against Kansas State, and it's a professional high. You're at the world's most famous arena and you're going to the Final Four. And then 7 days later, you're in the Final Four. You have a chance to play for a national title, and you lose on a buzzer beater. What is it like in 7 days to go from a professional high to then losing on a buzzer beater in the Final Four?
Well, the professional high, I don't think you realize it at the time. We knew. We walked in the locker room, and I remember saying to Drew Williams on our staff, like, our lives just changed forever. And but that was the end of the conversation, and then you shift focus to, all right, what do we need to do to be ready to play in the Final Four, and what comes with that. And then as soon as the shot goes in, you immediately turn the page to next year. That's our job now. You know, I remember Coach Larinaga telling me in an event after the season that he had 6 guys waiting for him in the office the day after they got back from the Final Four to discuss business. And luckily, we didn't have that. We had a good pulse of what it was gonna look like, but we knew that the first week after the season really determines if we're gonna have a chance to go back and do it again. And so you don't really have time to even reflect. You flip turn the page. You're in the next chapter, which is retention and recruiting, and that's the new normal.
You know, Dusty, you're still a young coach. You're going to have a chance to coach in the Final Four, you know, multiple times, obviously, before you decide to stop coaching. But I'm curious, you know, Jay Wright told me the first time he went to the Final Four, he thought he was on a business trip, and he wound up, when he went a second time, doing things a lot differently because you don't know what you're dealing with necessarily the first time from the experience. If you get back to a Final Four, are there certain things you will approach differently in terms of dealing with the ancillary things around your team as it enters that setting?
Yeah, for sure, John. I spoke with so many people in advance to try to be prepared. I think the Monday when we got back, I was on the phone with anyone that I knew that had played there and tried to learn from their mistakes. But there are a couple things that we overlooked that I definitely would change. But there's a lot of distractions for those guys. That is the pinnacle of our profession, and it seems like the entire sports world is focused on one event. So without a doubt, we've learned some things, and hopefully we have a chance to implement those changes this March.
What's been the biggest difference in being the head coach at Michigan versus being the head coach at Florida Atlantic?
John, we changed so much at Florida Atlantic from where we started to where we were. It's almost like you were going from the farm leagues to single A to double A to triple A to the majors. And I feel like our last couple of years at FAU, we were in the majors. We just weren't in the Yankees. I think we were probably the Royals or whatever the case. And now we're with the Yankees or the Mets or whoever, the Tigers. So it happens so fast. But the stuff that we enjoy is exactly the same. When you set foot in the film room, in between the lines, in the weight room with your guys, whatever the case, it's all the same. There's just so much other stuff to deal with, but I think there's so much other stuff to deal with at the low and mid-major level as well that it's all changed so much. Then you just got to continue to adapt and be flexible.
Well, and that's obviously helped you put the roster together that you're coaching right now. You know, obviously a team that's dominated college basketball. I know when we spoke before the season, you told me that this team you felt had a chance to win a national title. Has this team, with the way it's dominated so far, usurped your own expectations early?
Probably so. We felt like we had a chance to be really good, but I never envisioned this. And obviously, as a coach, when you look at your Players Era tournament schedule alone, you have anxiety. So it's tough to look, in the rear view and anticipate that you could do this. But We have a really, really talented locker room, and we have experience, we have depth, but most importantly, we have great basketball character. And so I'm always going to feel like we have a great chance when you have all those things, in addition to a staff that does their absolute best to prepare our guys.
Now, there was a week early in the season where you played Wake Forest and TCU, and they were two really, really competitive games. What has changed with Michigan since that win at TCU, which was by a close margin?
Well, our team chemistry is much better, and I don't want to. I want to give Wake Forest and TCU a lot of credit. Those guys have played really well. Like all of us, they haven't played with the consistency they need to, but they've had some really big moments. Both of those guys. I've seen Wake Forest take obviously a really good Texas Tech program to the wire. The Vanderbilt game probably is an outlier, but same thing with TCU. They played really, really well, beat Florida. So we weren't at our best. We weren't clicking yet. We really hadn't practiced much together because we'd had untimely injuries, meaning Mara misses a couple weeks right as soon as Merez Johnson gets back after missing 4 or 5 weeks. So it just seemed like we never really developed any chemistry or flow. And then also we discovered some things about ourselves, and once we saw those things were working, our guys took ownership of them, and our defense has improved drastically, our offense has improved drastically, and our guys are shooting the ball with much more confidence than they were at that time of the season.
Your 2-point defense in Las Vegas might have been the best I've ever seen, but you guys are also scoring the ball at an incredibly high rate. What is it like as a coach to know that you can win with great defense or great offense?
Well, the defensive side is the one that really gives you confidence that you can play freely on offense and make some mistakes and not hang on to every single possession. You can take some calculated risks, but defensively, we're really big, we're athletic, and we feel like we play differently. And most importantly, our point of attack defense has been exceptional since Vegas with Elliott Cadeau and LJ Kaysen and those guys, and Trey McKenney on the ball, Roddy Gale. I think that's probably been the biggest difference. And then simply our guys are covering for each other much better. They're understanding our system, how we play, what are we really looking for, and what's the most important things, and they're knowing where to look, what to look at, and just simply making plays and flying around. So it's fun to see them covering for each other more than anything else.
The run in Las Vegas was unlike anything I've ever seen in terms of a margin of victory perspective in an early season tournament. What was it like to watch your team in that type of a setting be so dominant against so many good teams?
Yeah, it was I guess very rewarding to see a team perform like that in that stage, but it also showed us what we were capable of. I think that tournament gave us a lot of confidence to be able to go play against some of the best programs in the country and do what we did over a 3-day period. And I think that is probably what's propelled us, because if you go play one game, then you take 3 or 4 days off, you play another game 3 or 4 days off, you probably don't have a chance to reinforce or stamp what you're doing, the behaviors and whatnot. So I think it was, us getting off to a good start, and obviously we had a lot of edge against San Diego State, and then it allowed us to just continue to reinforce the right behaviors, and our guys have ran with it. They've been awesome.
I know it's a long season, and I know that there's obviously going to be peaks and valleys, but I also know what the ultimate goal is, and that's to win a national championship. For this team, are you at the point right now where, as a coach, you would like some game pressure in the final minutes of a game just to see how your team would respond after dominating so many of its opponents?
No, John, I'd rather not. We're very confident that we'd rather play really good basketball for about 90 to 100 possessions every night and have some margin of victory. And then when those games are coming, though, John, you don't need to worry about it. And we're at I think the next 3 teams in our league, we play them on the road, only at Illinois, only at Purdue, and then Michigan State twice. So we don't need to worry about the margin very much longer. We're going to be in some dogfights.
Well, and you have a roster that's built for that, and I think that's really, for me, the interesting thing is you inherited a program that won 8 games the year before you got there. You put together a team last year, Vlad Golden, Danny Wolf, went to the Sweet 16, lost to Auburn and went to the Final Four, and then you retool and you've put together this roster. Why has your ability to put together rosters in back-to-back years at Michigan been so elite?
I'll give our staff a lot of credit. We do a nice job of evaluating the right personalities for us, and also the right basketball formula as far as unselfishness, unique skill sets, and then figuring out ways to make it work. If something's not going well, we don't scrap it. We don't say we need to go find someone else or whatever the case. We put our heads down and really get more determined to figure out the solutions to our problems and put these puzzles together. But last year's team gave us a lot of credibility in this year's recruiting market, and we're very grateful for those guys because when you watched us play, there were a lot of older basketball players throughout college basketball reaching out to saying that they wanted to play like that. So the unselfishness, the effort that our guys put into it, those are the things that we want to stand out when you watch us on television. And we want guys who want to be a part of doing it that way. And hopefully we continue to attract those guys.
Dusty, is there anybody you studied either at the professional level or in any other form of basketball to try to understand the roster composition importance as we transition into this new climate of college sports?
Yeah, we talk to baseball front offices. We speak with NBA front offices. I mean, our staff, we spread out and really dig deep in a lot of different areas. And so 100%, and we're continuing to do that. We've looked at the model of percentage of cap for the last couple of years, but we've been very fortunate that we've had a very balanced roster financially. We've had a balanced roster on the court, and we haven't had any jealousy of what guys make. Because at the end of the day, we all have a different level of marketability. Different coaches have different levels of all of it. The rules are, I've said this since I was a coach. The rules are different for everyone. And so, but once we're in between the lines, it's all about basketball. But it's been fun learning that side of it, as far as player retention, player recruitment, and factoring in the salaries and the number of years and whatnot. So, it's not always easy, but if you're curious and you enjoy learning new things, it is fun.
How does a coach keep a balanced and together locker room when obviously now that players are getting paid, which they should have been a long time ago, not every player is going to be making the same amount?
Yeah, the guys that aren't making it, you want them to feel like they'll be rewarded for playing the right way, and they will make it in the future. But that's a tough balance. But I think also when you recruit guys that have some self-awareness and they realize how good some of the older players are, and they deserve to be compensated like they are because of how good they are and how much they impact winning. And so if a guy's not making it on your program, you have a choice to either get him to a market level or he's going to leave, and that's part of the decisions we have to make. You hate it because there is no constraint to leaving, but it's part of the current landscape. So we have to be our absolute best as far as development and helping our guys be the absolute highest value they can be, or we'll probably lose them. So it holds us coaches to the highest level of accountability.
I know that the guys you brought in, Yaxel Lendeborg, Aday Mara, have gotten a lot of the attention from Michigan, and rightfully so. We'll get to them in a minute. But in order to put together this roster, how imperative was it to bring back 4 players from a Sweet 16 team as you did as a foundation?
Those guys are our foundation, John. And yesterday's game, Roddy Gale had 6 points, and I felt like he was the MVP of our team. Those guys are our unsung heroes. They're the ones that have sacrificed the most. They're the ones that recruited our roster despite having to share minutes with the guys that were coming in. And so when you look at the invisible plays, the intangibles that Roddy, Namari, LJ, and Will make on a daily basis, and how our culture is their culture now. Our environment is their environment. So if it wasn't for those 4 and the commitment they made to wanting to win and put the team on the same level as themselves, then we wouldn't be here today. So that's where it all started. And immediately after the season, we identified the guys that we felt like we could keep and would want to do it exactly how we're doing it. And those guys have never wavered.
Well, and the pieces that you added, led by Yaxel Lendeborg, have obviously amplified and augmented the capabilities of this team. There are not many players in the sport playing better than Yaxel Lendeborg right now. I know you knew he was good when he was recruiting him. Why has he maybe been better now that you're coaching him?
John, the way he can elevate his play on the biggest stage is something that I've never seen. And we've had guys before tell us that they were gamers, and we pretty much chalk that up as BS. And so we've challenged him to change his practice habits to prepare to be great on any given night. But when the stakes are the highest, he has an ability to play with great awareness, intensity, and make the biggest plays. It's impressive, but also his unselfishness is probably what's made him as unique as any superstar in college basketball.
Well, unique is a good transition to talk about Aday Mara, because at 7'3", it's not like he's just standing under the basket and dunking everything. He can have a big impact on the game also by initiating your offense at the high post. We saw a lot of progress last year at the end of the season at UCLA from Aday Mara. How have you seen him really, progress from that in his first year at Michigan?
He's improved in so many areas. First and foremost, his conditioning, his ability to guard on the perimeter has really made a big jump. And a lot of it is just repetition. He's played a lot more. He's had an opportunity. And we felt like for us to reach our ceiling, we had to play him through some down times early in the year. And even his first exhibition game against St. John's, he had really high hopes and expectations because he had performed so well in the offseason. And he had a miserable first half, and you could see his he just dropped his head, and to see our players rally around him because of how much they believed in him, and he had a really good second half, and he's played really, really well, but he's still just scratching the surface. Aday is incredibly talented. We're seeing him handle the ball better. He's working diligently at night on his three-point shot. He wants to add that in time, but his passing and his rim protection are the two things that make him truly, truly special.
You had referenced Elliott Cadeau's defense at the point of attack, but he is also a much improved three-point shooter, which obviously is going to open up the floor for you on offense. How have you seen him change his game since he arrived from North Carolina?
The point of attack defense is where he's made the biggest jump. We thought his lack of shooting was a myth based on he was always a good shooter off the catch and shoot. He had some issues making shots, threes off the bounce, and so he hasn't shot as many of those, but he's worked on it. But his balance, his release, we felt like he had the mechanics to be a really good shooter. He just needed to take the right shots and then know that we really, really believed in him. And if he does miss it, we're going to send some of those 6'9" to 7'3" guys to the offensive glass, so he should be shooting a stress-free basketball.
We're a long ways away from Selection Sunday, but if I was going to label now one wild card that could put things out of reach for Michigan in the NCAA tournament, it would be Trey McKenney, because he's somebody who, again, is not getting talked about like everybody else, but can come in and be a double-figure scorer. How much is his production, which has been really, really good already, continually moving forward, going to be a major part of what this team can do in the NCAA tournament?
Well, John, just the fact that we've been talking for 23 minutes and Trey McKenney's name or Morez Johnson Jr.'s name haven't came up is a testament to how deep and talented our roster is. Trey, because of the margin of victory, we've been able to play him as a backup point guard the last 7 or 8 minutes of games. And so to see his playmaking and decision-making catching up to his ability to score, make shots, and hit mid-ranges and get to the rim, and also like Elliott, his defense has probably been the biggest jump since the start of season till now. He's become really impactful on and off the ball, and to see him find different ways to impact a team is a sign of his maturity.
Dusty, you're getting ready for the winter in the Big Ten, which anybody who's coached in the Big Ten know is an arduous 2-month stretch. But there also is a wrinkle in Michigan's schedule in February when you're going to play Duke in Washington, D.C. Is having a non-conference opponent in February in the middle of Big Ten play something you could see yourself working on beyond this season and future seasons to come?
Absolutely, for a number of reasons, John. Obviously, we're all trying to generate revenue for future rosters, yes. And so this is part of the equation. Also, I asked Brad Underwood after they beat us at home last year, and they had a really tough go with Duke in a similar situation. In the handshake line, I asked him, I said, would you do it again? And he said, absolutely. So Brad's been a real sound resource, I think, for all of us coaches, because he's a forward thinker in everything that he does. So that tilted the scale for me. And then also when you hear guys like yourself talk about how many eyeballs are on non-conference games in January and February, it's good for the sport. We want to put Michigan under the spotlight, and our guys. We want to see them perform on that stage. So it makes sense on all fronts. We would do it a couple times, even though I'm going to be probably banging my head against the wall trying to prepare for that game in the middle of the Big Ten season. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it might be a little bit of a recess from the normal league play, but we got our work cut out for us, John.
I know next season you have the return game with Villanova in Philadelphia. I know you have the Players Era Festival, which is going to be 3 big games at least. Is there anything else of substance already on the books for Michigan in 2026?
Yeah, we're working on a couple big non-conference games that we're close to finishing the schedule. And, the TV partnership really helps. We tell them that we're open to play certain dates, and they go to work. And so, yeah, we're going to play more marquee games. I think we've cut our money games in half from last year to this year, and even more than that from the years prior. So, we're going to try to play as many of these games as possible. And it's just so much better for recruitment, for retention, and it's tough, but it's a lot of fun.
If there's 32 games now in college basketball and you're going to play 20 in the Big Ten, you have 12 non-conference games to play with. What's the right amount of power conference caliber games for Michigan?
12, ideally.
You would play
Probably
12 high major games in a non-conference.
Absolutely. We will soon. I anticipate next year playing 9 or 10, and then the following year, probably 11 or 12. There might be certain times in the schedule. Oakland was a great game for us. They're a good basketball team. They're well coached, and they play a zone, so it forces us coaches who are nuts to get our zone package and get those reps in early in the year. So if you see it, you can at least have something to point back towards. So there might be games like that serve a particular purpose. But overall, we love these big games. The Players Era was awesome. At TCU prepared us. Wake Forest in Detroit was a great environment. And obviously this Duke game is going to be something that's going to be a lot of fun for our fans.
Well, Dusty, what these games also do is put you in a better position to have a high seed in the NCAA tournament, which obviously you're in great position for. I know it's only December, but you more than anybody else know the importance of what a geographic advantage in the NCAA tournament means, because you went to Atlanta to play Auburn last year in the Sweet 16, which was a pseudo home game for them. How much is that on your mind, as you know that literally every single game matters when we're talking about seeding for the NCAA tournament?
It's in the back of our mind just because it'd be really cool to play in the Midwest and have a Michigan contingency there. But there's so many other things that we have to worry about. Our competitive nature, I think, it cancels out that. We want to play well every single frame of every single possession. But that is in the back of our mind, especially next year having another championship caliber roster as the Final Four is in Detroit. So there's a number of reasons for us to continue to put a really good team together that has a chance to play the most meaningful games in March and April.
Coaches that have advanced to a Final Four have told me that once they went to a Final Four, it's very difficult to watch the Final Four the years after. Have you felt that way in 24 and 25?
Yeah, I watch it just to see how the teams are playing and maybe watch it after the game, but I have no desire. And to be honest, John, if you're not playing in it now, you're probably at some type of Final Four donor party trying to raise money. So you're preoccupied anyway.
No doubt, and that's obviously part of the deal, because obviously now even more recruiting is the lifeblood of every program. Dusty, coaches always yearn for the players that they didn't get. In all your years of coaching, what was the one recruit that you salivated for but just missed out on?
John, we had Shea Alexander committed for a long time at Florida, and had the rug pulled out just before signing day, and it worked out for everyone. We had Chris Chios on our roster, who was an all-SEC caliber point guard, so it worked out for everyone. But man, we saw something special in him early on, and just couldn't hang on to it. So that's probably the biggest miss.
Yeah, no, I would say that keeps you up when the head hits the pillow. But we move forward now, and you're at Michigan. You guys are having an unbelievable season. I know that you are eviscerating opponents every time you play them. But for you, who's obviously the architect of this team, what is the biggest long-term key for Michigan to be the #1 seed in the Midwest on Selection Sunday and obviously have a great opportunity to get to Indianapolis for the Final Four in 2026?
Other than the obvious key of being good health, our team chemistry, if we don't let any outside noise fracture our locker room, then we're going to be able to compete with anyone. Because that's our secret sauce. Our unselfishness and our team bond, camaraderie are what make us unique right now. And so as long as that doesn't change, we're gonna be in position to play really good basketball.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun to cover. Dusty, appreciate a couple of minutes. Hope you get some R&R here during the holidays. And as always, look forward to staying connected along the way.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Great job, man.
You got it. That's Michigan head coach Dusty May. I'm Jon Rothstein, and this is Inside College Basketball Now.